Hi everyone. This is Mike Kwan from In Time Tech, and thank you for attending our presentation of benefits of outsourcing your software development. I assume that you all can hear me, so I'm just going to keep plowing ahead. Here we go. So here's an overview of what we're going to do today in the webinar. We'll do a short introduction, and then we'll cover some aspects of that apply to general outsourcing, like the difference between direct hiring and outsource hiring and things to consider, some cost considerations. How do you select a good project that's right for outsourcing? And then some additional, once you've decided, or once you think that outsourcing may be maybe something that you want to that you may want to be doing, some other things to consider before you make that decision. Then in the next section, we'll introduce In Time Tech, our company, and we'll let you know what we bring and how we engage with our clients. Summary, and then there'll be time to address some of your questions at the end. So your hosts, myself, Mike Kwan, I'm the Vice President of the Pacific Northwest for In Time Tech. And Paul, are you on the line?
You bet, I'm here.
Oh, great. Paul, introduce yourself.
Yeah, Paul Remus. I do business development here in, we just call it the Northwest region, really focused in the Boise, Meridian market. Also get a little bit out towards Salt Lake occasionally, but basically here, building the office in the Boise area and working with a lot of clients and partners here around the Boise metropolitan area.
Thanks. Oh yeah, and by the way, yeah, for me, I'm in the Portland, Oregon metro area. So we've all run into it. We've got a great idea or a great opportunity, but we can't see it through because either we don't have people with the right capabilities, or we don't have enough of them, or we don't have them when we need them, or likely some combination of the above. Oops, I'm supposed to be going through. Yeah, there you go. There are three big aspects of how you're going to get your work done. Do you have the capabilities? Do you have the capacity? And do you have the availability of the people? So your first thought is probably to go out and hire some people. We've all done plenty of that in the past, and we should be really good at it, right? So direct hiring. You'll start down the path of hiring, and you'll encounter your typical, your HR. You'll deal with your HR department or HR partner and recruiters. Go through the searches on the websites, identify keywords, screen your questions. You'll do your interviews and your candidate selections, do your compensation research, and make offers when you find good candidates. And then anxiously wait for your candidates to decide. And then you'll rinse and repeat over and over again. And then once they've decided, yeah, you go through your onboarding, again, dealing with HR and the recruiters to get them in. You'll start dealing with things like getting your people a desk and getting them site access, email and IT accounts, workplace training, both workplace and technical training, and ramp their performance. And then rinse and repeat again for each of the people. And then when it comes time to execute your projects, you'll be managing and coaching performance. You'll be managing and coaching teamwork and workplace culture. You'll be paying for infrastructure, your compensation of your people directly, and benefits, to tell you the truth. And in the back of your head, you'll be worrying about retaining your high performers and coaching your low performers. And all along, unfortunately, we suffer attrition. And worry about the impacts on team efficiency and morale. And again, rinse and repeat. And finally, at the end of your project, again, you'll be working with HR and your benefits people. You'll be making decisions on team and individual redeployment, and sometimes that may end up in termination. You'll be working to get them severance packages and worry about unemployment, and then you'll be grieving for those who leave. And again, rinse and repeat. And all throughout this, maybe you manage to hire a staff with the right capabilities to do your project, enough of them to do the project, and at the right time to make your project a success. Maybe. But there's another way. Outsource hiring. Outsource hiring is a real flexible solution. When it comes to hiring, your outsource partner is responsible for the hiring process. They do the recruiting and the searching and the interviewing and the selection and the offering and deal with the candidate decisions. And for onboarding, your outsource partner is responsible for the HR and benefits and ramping their performance. And depending on your needs, you may still have to find them a desk and get them site access, but that all just depends on your project and your work environment. When it comes time for project execution, your outsourced partner is responsible for performance and compensation, benefits. Your outsourced partner is the one worrying about retention and coaching performance. And they're the ones who are suffering attrition and it impacts on morale. And again, depending on your needs, you may still have to integrate the people into your team and the workplace processes and cultures. But again, maybe, just depends on your project. And then at the end of your project, your outsourced partner is responsible for what the staff does next. So everybody wants to know, so here's the big topic everybody wants to snap to. Weighing the costs of direct hiring versus outsourced hiring. So it depends. There's no one blanket statement that one always costs more than the others. It just depends. But what we'll cover here, what we want to talk about are, there are visible costs and there are hidden costs with each of these. So for the visible costs, yeah, they're very, very visible. Salary, benefits, taxes. Some of these are a little more visible than others. Like I don't always know what taxes we're paying for our employees, but those are easily found out. In direct hiring, and then in hidden costs, there are hidden costs. Like the true costs can be hidden by risks of efficiency, of latency in hiring. The hidden costs include the HR and staffing departments and development overhead to train and ramp the staff. And then the risk costs, like to the schedule and the opportunity to, when you have difficulty getting qualified candidates and such. There are hidden costs of people management too. Yeah, the direct managers have to spend their time managing people's performance and compensation and personal growth and their careers. And yes, it's part of those managers' jobs, but there's a cost to those managers. There's cost in attrition and turnover, not just in your efficiency and your capacity hit when you lose people, but the morale impact on the organization. Sometimes it's positive. We've all run into times when it's a positive impact when somebody leaves, but most of the time there's some sort of negative impact. There's infrastructure costs. That's easily missed. Includes equipment like PCs and desks and chairs, but also ones that we rarely think about, like the heating and air conditioning and the lighting. And for many of us, it's just the cost of doing business, but it's the cost to your organization somewhere. And then the physical space, and we never, I very rarely think about physical space, but you know, I start thinking about it when we run out of space, and then you realize, yeah, it's going to cost something, something every time somebody, you know, you get space for somebody to be there. So for direct hire, yeah, you can see there are visible costs. There are a lot of hidden costs to your organization. So contrasting that with outsource hiring, yeah, your visible costs, it's all in the contract. You know, all of the benefits, all the taxes, all the salary, everything. It's just spelled, what it costs to you is spelled out in the contract. And then as far as hidden costs for outsource hiring, yeah, there are some that you'll incur, like vendor management and the accounting and financial services to handle the invoicing and financial transfers. In my experience, those are, you know, the vendor management, that was always buried in the, you know, the procurement department anyway, or the procurement processes. And then the accounting, it was just another account for the accounting department. It's nothing unique, a unique hidden cost in outsource hiring. But when it comes time to choose a project, should you, you know, if you have a project in mind, should you outsource that? Well, it depends. It depends on what you're needing to be done. Certain projects lend themselves very well to outsource development, and some take some thought. So one way to organize your thoughts about this is one way we do it is we classify projects into what we call core and context. Core projects, this is work that is really key to creating your business value. This is the value that differentiates you from your competitors. Some thought may be needed to outsource core projects. This doesn't mean you shouldn't outsource core projects. You just need to think about it and decide. So what do you have to decide about? What do you really have to think about? Well, if you have a trusted outsource partner, you know, you can trust them with intellectual property. So in one of my past lives, I worked on color printers. And to tell you the truth, the color science of how do you make millions of colors with only 4 colors of ink, that was intellectual property. And you need to pause. It's not that, you know, when you have an outsourced partner, are they trusted enough for them to give that core work? If you're making a photo printer, are they trusted enough to give that core work, that key business value to them? When you're building strategic capabilities, you may ask yourself, you know, do you really want it to outsource a capability you want to build? Like, if I owned a barbecue restaurant, I'd want to learn to cook the ribs myself. I don't want to outsource that all the time. Another is your customer relationship. So your trusted outsource partner. You know, your relationship and your loyalty of your customers is something that you may want to own yourself. I can tell you right now, my internet service provider, the only people I've ever talked with are in customer service. And I know darn well that that's outsourced because I happen to know the company. But those customer service people, those outsourced people, they are the ISP to me. They're the only ones I've ever talked with at my internet service provider. They are the face of my internet service provider. Yeah, do you want to outsource that? You might, but you might not. You just have to think about it. And then there are risks that you may want to manage yourself. If you're in a rapidly changing competitive market, how quickly do you want to make the decisions, and will your outsource partner be quick enough or as quick as you? And then there are certain financial and legal and regulatory responsibilities that you may not want to outsource, or you may. You don't know.
And Mike, just to jump in, I a lot of times think about core as innovation. You know, when you say it's key business value. So a lot of times, this is where you want to focus new work is in the core area. It's where you differentiate your whatever business offering you have. It's where you really want to differentiate and set yourself up with a unique value proposition. So I think the key you have there is trusted outsource partners. So this isn't necessarily a place where you would invest in outsourcing unless it was in an area of competency that you don't necessarily want to develop. So, for example, customer service, if you don't want to, invest in the infrastructure to answer phones and do all that, but you can find a trusted partner that you feel confident can represent your company well, then that's a way to look at, okay, it's a core feature, core function of my business, but I don't want to develop the competency there.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for jumping in, and jump in anytime. I'm
All right.
I'm trying to put little pauses in there and see if for you. On the other end of the spectrum from core is what we call context. This is important work. Well, it's all important, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, right? But generally, it's non-differentiating work. In other words, work that doesn't necessarily differentiate the value that you're delivering from the value that your competitors are. So don't get me wrong, context work needs to be done. It's most often a bit removed from directly generating the business value. So context work in general is ripe for outsourcing. It's easiest to understand when this concept when with a couple specific examples. One, this is one of Paul's accounts. It's the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children. Now, AEYC manages training and certification of childcare providers, but in Time Tech, we developed the web application to reduce their paperwork. And so what it did was it enabled the AEYC staff to spend their time with the childcare providers and not acquire the capability to do a web app. Or a point of sale solution. Like if I owned a donut shop, you probably don't want me investing in figuring out how to connect the point of sale system to the food ordering and the credit card backends. You would probably want me spending more time improving my glazed old-fashioned donut recipe. And even pizza chains with phone apps. I don't want my pizza place. I want them to build better pizzas. I don't want them maintaining their own cloud. So these are things that are really ripe for outsourcing.
Yeah, and I would jump on that, Mike. I think that, when we engage with new partners, new clients, a lot of times we look for areas where you would really consider to be context work. So for example, server maintenance, those servers are essential to your business running, but the maintenance of them isn't necessarily something you want your key database administrators working on. So can they create scripts that then other people can execute? Another great example I think of is, hey, we need a native app and we've developed an iOS app. And so the specs are all there, the functionality's there. Well, now we need an Android app. Does it really make sense to have the people who have been developing that app and its use models really replicate the work on a new platform? Or would that be a good thing to ask a partner to develop while those creative engineers who are pushing the envelope and understand your business and are looking for the next set of features that your clients are looking for, have them kind of continue, if you will, plowing or building new roads, and having a partner come back and maybe pave the road that they've already really started to pioneer through. So in really the way I look at it is the context work is where you build the relationship to where you could then become really that trusted partner with each other and say, okay, are there other things where we want to get our development to move faster? We need to get to market quicker. and we don't want to incur some of those costs that you talked about earlier in terms of onboarding more people. Can my trusted partner help me with some of those activities? So the context place is a great place to start building trust and and getting your partner to understand your business.
Great. Thanks, Paul. And then, of course, it's not a binary world. There are tweeners. Tweeners, there's some work that, depending on how you look at it with regard to core and context, it just depends. And it kind of is in between them. And so things like quality work, QA, and in our software world, QA and automations and cloud operations and DevOps, deploying things, even cybersecurity. This is tweener work that it may not be your primary business value, but it actually may be devastating to your business if you don't get them right. And then what about, we call them work with models. So there are a couple of different ways that outsource hires can work with your teams, and that's they can augment your own teams. If you already have a software team, you just don't have the specific capability or the capacity. You can strengthen your own teams in those ways by adding outsource hires. Or if you have like Paul said, I mean, if you want to extend an iOS app and take on Android, that's really ripe for a standalone team to be outsourced. I mean, it's well defined. There's not a lot of tight dependency with your team, and they can just take off on it. So you can actually outsource an entire standalone team.
Yeah, that's a great example, Mike. And I think about other areas where, like I said earlier, you might just not want to develop that competency. So, do you want your developers writing unit tests? Probably yes. Do you want them to be writing, functional tests? I think that's a good question. I think sometimes that makes the most sense. But if you're trying to get your product out quickly, you could say, look, I want my developers writing code, writing unit tests, and I'm going to ask a partner to come in, utilize the requirement specifications and write those functional tests that then run in an automated fashion and make sure that, as more code is coming in, it's not breaking the existing functionality. And that's a great example where you're working both in a core and context area, but you're is helping you to get the velocity, if you will, get the work done faster.
And then, but wait, there's more to consider, but more looking inside of your, looking at your specific situation. So additional considerations, does your organization, how's the culture? How does it view outsourcing? Does it view outsourcing as a business enabler? So, you get a sense for this when your team, your team and your organization jumps up and down and says, "Yay, we get more people to get our stuff done." But also there could be some latent, do-it-yourself or not invented here culture that you have to be sensitive to, and this could be hidden. You may have to look for it. There could be, to tell you the truth, a little resentment that things are being outsourced. You just have to understand the culture of your organization. Also, you need to look at your organization's policies around, for example, security, privacy, and intellectual property. Are all of those policies compatible with outsourcing? Are all your needs in these areas, is it okay to invite another company in? Yes, you will build trust. If you have a good partner, you'll build trust. But trust is really an emotion, and policies are kind of in writing. So you need to make sure is your work, are the tools and processes that enable outsource partners, are they in place? Are they compatible with outsourcing? Firewalls, time zones, task and information dependencies, these things are all, these things enter into it. Even product architecture. We had a firmware, or we were doing some firmware work for a company that had a big chunk of hardware to run. Well, that hardware was difficult to ship overseas to our development team, and that chunk of hardware was constantly changing anyway, and it ended up that this ended up to be such a prohibitive thing that they hadn't considered, that we ended up not delivering a whole lot of value to them, and we ended up stopping that work. And then also, here we go. The last part is co-employment. Co-employment laws in the U.S. There are laws that govern how you deal with outsource people. And do you have the policies in place? Do you understand it? Some of it seems simple. Some little things that may seem simple. You may have augmented your workforce with a handful of outsourced developers, and then on a Friday, nice sunny Friday afternoon, you may bring in pizza and beer. Is everybody included? Do your outsourced developers, are they included in that? Yeah, there are aspects of co-employment laws that do affect whether, how they may participate in that. So, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Mike, and say that, all of these things can be, very high barriers to having an effective partnership. And, I think that, as you described, we've been able to experience, the highs and lows of a lot of these aspects of things. And a good partner is able to, if you will, ease each of these hurdles through, partnership. I mean, looking at just the culture one. So, if the teams are resistant, how do you make sure that, your working is enabling that team to innovate more, as opposed to working in, the context work? Policies. How does our company work with your company to comply to those policies? We've had, worked with companies which have very sensitive data, a lot of personal data, and how do we then segment networks and actually create physical access? Your example of the coordination aspects, and I think having a partner who's willing to walk away from an engagement when it's not working is another key to building trust. And so that it's important to make sure that we're adding value on both sides. And if there are hurdles along this, vectors that can't be addressed, then that's a great place to say, look, maybe this isn't the right time for this engagement based on some of these hurdles. So I think, always in all of this stuff, the right partner that's willing to talk about these hurdles and then help address is always going to be important.
Okay. That's outsourcing, kind of the general part of outsourcing. We're going to switch gears here a little bit and tell you about our company, InTime Tech. So at InTime Tech, we create abundance. We just happen to build software. And, when I think about creating abundance, it's like, I think about, we don't want, we're not here just to get a bigger piece of the pie. Oops. We're here to help build, to increase the size of the pie. We want everybody to win. We want our clients to grow. And we hope that our clients want us to grow also. Our company, InTime Tech, we value trust, transparency, integrity, and leadership. Those are our core values. And our brand promise. We promise that you'll see immediate ROI or you won't pay us. Our clients, with our clients, we have monthly business reviews. We review all the work that we've done, all of our deliverables that we've delivered together. And we will always say, we always ask, are you seeing the value that you need? Because if you're not, we need to change something. And sometimes that something is, and you won't pay us because we didn't deliver. What do we bring? What does In-Time Tech bring? So we talked, in the first part, we talked about capability, capacity, and timing at In-Time Tech, and we're in the business of software development. We have over 500 software developers, including both in the US and a couple of big offices in India. Gives us the flexibility to put, and what this does, as far as capacity, capability, capacity, and timing, it gives us the flexibility to put the number of people you need with the right capabilities on your project when you need them. We have a tremendous assets, a tremendous size of our organization to apply to your business. When it comes to onboarding and ramping at In-Time Tech, we mentor our developers. We assign senior developers and sometimes architect level on our dime. You don't get charged for this. And they coach and mentor our developers when they start up on your projects. So what you'll see is a very, very quick ramp in our developers, and they'll start delivering value very, very quickly. When it comes time to execution time, the coaching and mentoring doesn't stop with just their ramping. It continues. And what you'll see is we ensure that our developers grow their leadership and their technical skills and deliver even more value to you. On the technical side, if you have specific technical challenges or needs in certain capabilities, our company is so big we can get them the mentoring and build the capabilities on the vector that your business is needing. And our bench depth ensures that anytime that we suffer attrition, it doesn't affect your project. Oftentimes, you don't know about it except for of course, with transparency, we'll let you know that it's happening, but execution time and value delivery, you won't see a blip. And again, we'll never stop ensuring that you're getting ROI or you won't pay us. And then at the end of the project, at In-Time Tech, we deploy our people at the end of the project. And it's something that we address. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I'd jump in here a little, Mike, and as you said, we have business reviews on a monthly basis, and I remember having one business review with a pretty tough customer, and he was talking to us, and he's like, I keep looking for a month when I can't pay you because you don't deliver ROI, but it just hasn't happened yet, and so that was kind of a great testimonial. But I just want to, say a couple things around the culture. And, I think one of the costs of, there can be an opportunity cost in outsourcing, which is that, you have decided that you're going to take the time to build a team with an offshore partner. You're going to invest your time in helping them know what your business is and what your technology is. And then, what comes out of that sometimes isn't exactly the end result you're looking for. And a lot of that is around communication and leadership. And a couple things that we do, I think, is we hugely invest capabilities of our offshore and onshore engineers. We want them to have a voice and be able to look for the better way to get things done and always offer that to the clients. The other thing that we do when we start an engagement is we look at that as a mutual investment. Our clients are investing their time in helping our engineers and our business people understand what business value they're looking for, what their business objectives are, and what they're looking for us to deliver. And during that ramp up time, we don't charge. And we generally have, if you will, a trial run where we on ramp our folks, we get them up and running in the client environment, and we have a set of deliverables which we make as a trial where we don't charge till our teams are up and running and are fully functional within the, if you will, environment and requirements structure of our partner and client. And that's really a key for us. That's how we build trust. That's how you, as the client, know you're not investing a bunch of your valuable time in a partner who is not going to be able to deliver at the end of the day. Now, still it's a risk. You know, you're still taking that risk of spending the time with your client. And we try to minimize that risk because it's your time, not necessarily your dollars as well. And it's an investment on our end too. So we're taking a risk in that we're investing our energy in getting our management and our engineers understanding the client partner business. So that's really what I believe is the key in terms of getting a project started. And that's what we mean by creating abundance, which is we're not in it to like bill you for work that is just turn the crank. We want to be providing value for our clients to say, yes, you're helping my business succeed. And I feel good about, the fact that you're invoicing me for that work.
So at Inside Tech, our engagement models, yeah, let's talk about those. We have an offshore model. And with that, with everything, there are pros and cons. So I'll just start describing some of them. So generally, you'll see lower costs with us, with the offshore, our offshore teams. You'll see a time zone difference, unless you happen to be in India, but we'll see a time zone difference. And at first glance, it may seem like something that needs to be dealt with, but and it used to be a little more difficult, or a lot more difficult, but with our mobility and communications capabilities these days, it's much less of a barrier than it used to be. And at other times, it's a definite asset. So for example, we have one client that has, it's a global company, and they needed DevOps coverage. Their DevOps team was based in the US, and it was really a pain in the rear for them to get 24-hour coverage. Well, we're doing their DevOps coverage from our India team, and now they have 24-hour coverage, and nobody has to stay up all night to do it. There are different contexts and thinking when you engage with an offshore team. The offshore team may come with a different lens to look at the same issues and opportunities, and they see things different. And when you have a full, room full of people who all think alike, we arrive at the same answer pretty much to a problem, and we may miss, a subtle or maybe not so subtle aspect of the issue at hand or the opportunity at hand, because we're all thinking exactly the same. So, in our case, you're not just getting people who code; you're getting people who think differently and see things differently and see different opportunities. Similar things with cultural differences. Different cultures may give us insights that we didn't have when we're all from the same culture. Travel, again, it can be a pro or a con depending on how you see it. But if you're a client, you may not ever travel to India, or you may if you want to. But yeah, it's not mandatory when you're working with us that you travel to India, because we have plenty of onshore people to interface with you. And again, depending on your business needs, you may gain regional access when you use an offshore partner. So if you ever want to crack the market, for us, if you wanted to address a market in India, for example, this is one way you can do it, is engaging us as an outsourced partner. Now, the other side of the engagement model is an onshore team. So at In Time Tech, our developers, we have plenty of US-based developers, and they can be embedded on your site, in your team, at your facility. And this is real typical when we're augmenting a workforce. And it's a huge value when there are strong dependencies with your organization, either technically or people-wise. Our onshore teams give us cultural similarities, and the pro there, we can be quicker in decision making and in our communications. The con, yeah, but we risk that singular answer and the missed opportunities and alternatives. And again, travel. No travel to go talk with the people who are embedded on your team, or even if they're not embedded physically there, you're probably a time zone or two away, and that's a pro for a lot of people. And then at In Time Tech, we found a model we use a model that works very, very well, and that's a blended team. Both we have onshore developers that may be embedded with your team, and an offshore team that's doing a lot of work also. And the communications and coordination with the offshore team is actually managed through our onshore people. Our onshore people tend to be leads and can help lead and communicate well with the offshore team. You'll see the same advantages of time zone coverage, overall lower costs, mixed cultures and context and thinking, and as well as gaining regional access and knowledge.
Oh, Mike, I would jump in a little bit on that
Yeah.
as well. And what I would emphasize is the key to all this is making it work. What I think about there is leadership and communication. And our company, especially our CEO, Jeet, he's a native of one of the towns where our company is located in India. And Jeet and our leadership team on the offshore side really spend a lot of time making sure that our offshore engineers have a voice and use their engineering intelligence to find the best way to solve problems. I really believe that they're very good at looking at problems that aren't necessarily, or requirements that aren't necessarily defined down to the finest degree. They can deal with ambiguity. They can deal with fairly ill-defined, if you will, objectives, so long as they understand the context of the business. And really that's a cultural that our company has made in making sure that our offshore engineers have a voice and are looking at the best solutions possible. The other thing I would say is that we also believe in communication. And one of the things we'll do is invest in having some of our offshore engineers come to the US to learn a little bit more about the onshore client partner relationship, their business, and actually create some face-to-face meetings with engineers and managers. So that's something that we do quite a bit, and we've invested in our client relationships by sometimes having that travel on our own dime, as opposed to trying to make that a cost for our clients. And I think you alluded to this real briefly, but we also offer trips like twice a year where some of our onshore folks will go to the offshore sites, and we'll host some of our clients who are interested in meeting the offshore team, both the engineering and management and leadership teams on the offshore side, because that collaboration and communication is just really taken to the next level when people can meet face to face. And so we believe in investing on both sides of that equation. So, that leadership and communication really go a long way towards building a trusting relationship that's functional, that actually delivers value, that provides business results and helps our clients, partners, business, accelerate, if you will, their deliveries.
Great. So summary, introduction to some general outsourcing. Introduce you to In-Time Tech and what we bring and how we engage. And time for some questions. Do we have any questions? Tasha, did we have any questions submitted?
Nope, none were submitted, but if you guys have any questions, you can type them in the Q&A box, or you can go ahead and raise your hand and I can allow to talk on my end. So if you guys have any questions, now is the time.
And I'd like to give you, we'd like to give you a big thank you. Here's our contact information. Please reach out. Talk to us. We don't bite.
Oh, we have a couple questions coming in. Mike, do you see those on your end?
I do.
All right, so we can go ahead and answer those live.
All right. Harley asks, is 20% a reasonable cost of accounting for a contract? Paul, can you take that? Yeah.
Yeah, Harley, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what that question means.
I'm gonna go ahead and allow her to talk. Harley, if you're ready, I'm gonna go ahead and allow you to talk.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Harley.
Okay, so one of the statements you made about vendor management is accounting, fintech transfer, accounts receivable is still a cost. And I try to thumbnail projects by where are the costs coming from and then what's the load.
Yeah, I'll say what I would say, Harley, is I think what Mike was talking about is there's a cost associated on your end with managing the contract, just in terms of having vendor management folks available. In terms of what we look at for our contracts, we don't really charge for, if you will, the overhead of project management and, if you would, vendor relationship. We charge solely for the engineering work. And so the engineers and the deliverables around the engineers are what we track and what we bill for. That said, there are some fairly large engagements where the overhead of project management then becomes something where it makes sense for us to add a headcount doing that work, and the client partner finds benefit there in that they don't have to do as much of the, if you would, requirements management and project management. But generally, at least as we're starting off an engagement, we only charge for the engineering effort, and we don't actually charge for if you would, the vendor management and the project management that's done on our side.
Okay, but there is, so we'll call that a gray area. The cost is there. We just don't know who's going to saddle that cost or where it's wrapped up in the project overall cost.
Yeah, that's a fair way to look at it, I think. And again, it depends on the size of the project. I think 20% might be a little high. I would hope it was more around 10%, but again, it's really variable depending on, how much process, if you will, each side wants to put into the contract, if you will.
Okay.
So Harley, one clarification, are you talking about, were you specifically thinking about the cost of accounting on the In-Time Tech side, or the cost that you would incur on your side?
Well, yeah, again, it's, if I define a project and a scope of work and a timeline and all that kind of stuff, I kind of need to know if I've got a $350,000 project, A to Z, soup to nuts, where's that money being spent? And you've covered pretty well all the known and unknown and hidden costs. It's just that if 20% is of that 350,000 is allocated to a lumped category called project management, accounting, task accounting, whatever you want to call it, then that's a rule of thumb that I use, but I didn't know if you had one. If you had a rule of thumb of this is the cost of maintaining a $350,000 contract. It's not the cost of delivering the code.
And I guess, I think in our estimation, that's probably about right, 10 to 20%. And generally, as we're scoping out a project, it's, we have kind of a minimum size project that we will look at, just because then we have critical mass where we can absorb that cost, if you will.
Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, and so what's the minimum project size?
The minimum project size is 3 engineering headcount on the offshore side, which is $12K a month for 6 months.
Okay, so then you guys know then that without that, you don't have any room for management, accounting, all the other thing that we'll just call project management. So, all right, thank you very much. That answers the question.
Sorry, it took us a while to get there, but that's where, and as you say, we then absorb that cost of overhead associated with getting the project going and the project management and all of the business oversight. Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Anything else out there? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. You have our contact information. Reach out.
Right, Happy New Year. Thanks again, boys.
Thank you.
And there is a girl over there. Sorry, you didn't get the name.
Yeah, I'm just the moderator. I'm Tasha.
Okay, Tasha. Adios. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Right. Thank you.